Hot off the press, we've got some exciting new details about Diablo 4's endgame progression that you're going to want to hear about. My name is Codiak, this is Legacy Gaming. Strap in, because there's plenty to talk about. The Diablo 4 dev team has finally showcased some highly anticipated endgame system information. While it gives a decent peek into what we can expect come level cap at 50, it's not exhaustive by any means, but it's something to get fans excited about. There's a theme across the game that the team continues to reiterate, and that's the play your way approach. Do the content you want, more or less when you want, and all roads lead to more powerful and cosmetically rich players. We know from previous showcases we'll have plenty of endgame systems to dabble in, but to quickly recap, through leveling and the zone renown systems, we'll gain skill points, upwards of 64 in total. At level 50, the Paragon system unlocks, giving players new ways to explore their character's power progression and added layers to build and experiment with virtually limitless combinations. By completing dungeons, over 120 legendary affixes can be unlocked and added or swapped on rares and legendary equipment. With those systems already known, this newest showcase brings the endgame closer to reality with a few new features. Let's kick off with world tiers. Sure, as a core progression system of Diablo, they exist, but it's now known that in order to gain access to World Tier 1, you first need to complete the story and then conquer what's called a capstone dungeon. What's not mentioned is if this is required to unlock every world tier or just the first. Hopefully they'll offer some clarification on this, as it honestly doesn't sound like a super exciting feature, just a checkbox to access a new system. The next exciting bit of info surrounds dungeons, specifically harder difficulties in the form of nightmare dungeons. After you complete the initial dungeon, you'll have opportunities to randomly obtain nightmare sigils. Activating these will start the nightmare difficulty of the dungeon. The difficulty changes are made up of a few things: harder enemies, additional objectives, random affixes to the dungeons and mobs, and finally we'll experience Hellgates. These are random portals that will unleash enemies from all over the world to invade the dungeon. I'm especially looking forward to that last point, Hellgates. In the open beta, a common complaint was the dungeons, bosses, and mobs felt too recycled. Hellgates have some potential to mix that up and really allow each to feel more unique from the last. Time will tell, but I think it has some potential. Now, not to be confused with Hellgates, are Helltides, our next endgame revelation. Special areas of the map will aesthetically change and be invaded by the forces of Hell. With these, of course, come more powerful enemies to slay and more difficult objectives to complete. Doing so, however, will reward players with unique shards. Throughout these areas are caches that this currency can be turned in at for powerful rewards. If I'm being honest, this whole system sounds really simple, and it probably is, and that's perfectly okay. A system doesn't need to be complex to be fun, and as yet another option for player choice in the endgame, it makes sense. The team didn't expand on any specific triggers for hellscapes, or if you simply just stumble upon them as you randomly explore areas. It'll be an interesting experiment to see how players interact with this system. If dungeon hunting isn't your thing, this definitely provides a different endgame avenue, a more open world and exploration approach that players can focus on. It's not clear where on the hierarchy this falls. Dungeons may still be where you get the best gear, so how hellscapes compare is something we're very interested to learn more about. Another open world option for players to explore is the Tree of Whispers. The team described this as a grim, gruesome entity that has a bit of a grudge against the player. Interacting with the tree will offer a selection of bounties. We'll travel all over the land to complete these, and upon turning them in, we'll be rewarded with, quote, something meaningful, unquote. You can complete these individually or as a group like almost all other Diablo 4 content. There's no hint as to the difficulty here, but it sounds like there'll be simple quest objectives within the existing open world, but we just don't know for sure. Finally, for you PvP folks out there, we have the Fields of Hatred. These are dedicated PvP areas where Lilith's presence has seeped through and manifested throughout. From the activities offered in these areas, players will obtain shards that will need to be purified. As you purify the shards, this is where that really heavy PvP action unfolds. There's a high risk versus reward factor here, but it isn't clearly defined if you'll be able to loot from the players you eliminate or if they simply lose what they had when they die. It would make sense that you can loot the corpse and steal their shards, but again, we just don't know for sure. Once a shard is purified, you'll be able to take it back to town and exchange it for cosmetic items and rewards. If players don't care about the way that they look or really don't enjoy PvP activities, it does seem like the Fields of Hatred could potentially be a skippable activity. While not super in-depth, it was great to see at least a small slice of endgame content in Diablo 4. Our heads are full of speculation and questions, but the goal here is to bring you the facts and let your brains fill in the gaps. Seriously though, we do want to know what you think. What kind of endgame content are you most excited for? What do you think is still to be revealed? And how do you think it'll all pan out in the long run? Leave us a comment down below. If Diablo 4 is on your radar and you want more content like this in your feeds, including deeper guides and eventually some fun builds, hit that like button and consider subscribing. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching and play on.